Welcome to episode 49 of the Unstoppable podcast with special guest Mandy Morris. My name is Dan J. Gregory and I am committed to hunting down the secrets of business mastery and human performance. My goal for the Unstoppable podcast is to share insights from some of the most successful entrepreneurs, inspiring thought leaders, world-class athletes, and prominent celebrities to help you to become unstoppable in business and life. Each week I'll be bringing you a new interview with an inspiring person and sharing my own results as I pursue the answers to the question, how can I create the ultimate edge in my business, make a significant impact, and live an extraordinary life? Hello and welcome to episode 49 of the Unstoppable podcast. One episode away from the big 5-0, and I've got a very special episode today before we hit the next milestone, episode 50, coming up on Monday. I've been absolutely delighted with the response to my solo episode this Monday, entitled, What Are You Committed To? I had a fantastic email just this morning from a listener named Michael, who said it's the most powerful episode that he has listened to so far, and it's helped him to realize where he's struggling the most and why and what he's been avoiding most of his life, and now he feels empowered to break through this block having listened to this episode. Big shout out to you, Michael. See you at the top, brother. Now, if you haven't listened to this show yet, I went exceptionally deep by sharing how every single result that you're experiencing right now is the exact result that you are committed to, and how you can make a change. Now, you might be arguing back with me, but if you've already listened to the show, then you'll understand this. If not, I implore you to check it out after this episode. I know it will be a game changer for you, just like this episode will be. Now, I've been excited to release this episode for a long time now. I recorded the interview prior to my recent 4-part mega business series, and it's been really, really tough to hold it back, knowing just how powerful this interview is. And to be honest, I wanted to put it out in the moment the interview was over. As soon as we finished, it was so powerful that how can I sit on this until a few weeks' time? However, if you are listening to this episode right now, then it's the perfect time for you. So get ready for one of the most transformational episodes yet. All of my guests add tremendous value every single time, but this conversation struck a lot of chords with me. It got me right in the heart. So, I don't want to prolong the wait any longer. Be sure to listen to the episode in its entirety today. I've taken copious notes myself, so sit back, get ready to pay close attention, take notes for yourself. You're going to find lessons in this show that's going to change your life, and I don't say that lightly. I am delighted to introduce you to Mandy Morris. Mandy Morris is an entrepreneur and thought leader. She mixes her mindset coaching with spirituality to create an authentic approach to tapping into your true potential and helping you give yourself ultimate self-acceptance. Mandy is known for helping her clients to create lasting change in less than 30 days by attacking the root cause of exactly what holds you back. No matter what's happened in your life to date, Mandy believes that facilitating a new belief paradigm is the most effective way to rewrite your story. Let's jump into the show, introducing Mandy Morris. Mandy, please tell the listeners a little about yourself in your own words.
I'm Mandy Morris. I am an entrepreneur. I spiritual coaching, mindset coaching. I focus on intuitive coaching, flexing that muscle, learning how to listen to inner guidance, because I believe that is the best way for someone to become self-sufficient. And outside of that, I've been heavily involved and done quite a bit of studying on childhood programming and also energy work. And so I've kind of combined it all together and turned it into a really unique coaching experience for my clients.
Amazing. And I can't wait to deep dive and find out more about that. But tell me a bit how you got started. How did you find your entrepreneurial path?
Well, so I started as a personal trainer back when I was 19, and I was still working, other jobs, wasn't taking it seriously. And I moved to Florida last year for a corporate job that I'd been working for 4 years that I was just dying in. My soul was just crippling. And I also didn't believe in myself, nor did I have the ability to ask for help. And so I kind of held it all in. And then when I moved to Florida, I was like, okay, this is the rest of my life. I just moved across country for something that I don't even want to do anymore. Wow. And when I looked at my priorities and what I said I wanted and what my actions were actually saying, they were completely disaligned. And when I looked at what gifts I did have to give the world and kind of fast forward and said, God, when I'm 60, how am I going to feel if I haven't given these gifts? And realizing that they are gifts, it was like, you just got to go for it. And so I started connecting with people. And as soon as I set that intention, that very genuine intention, people started showing up. And all these incredible like business coaches and friends and so forth just popped up from the woodworks and were willing to help me create this vision that I had in my head. And it continues to change, every day and grow. But as soon as I set that intention, it was like the universe was like, finally, we've been waiting. So it just kind of happened all together and very quickly as well.
Wow. So was there a pivotal moment where it's like, right, this is it, I'm off?
Yes, I was just going to be totally transparent here. I was crying in my condo in Florida, and I was like, I just know that I'm supposed to do more. And I sat and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I'm sitting there crying and everything. And I was like, I promise you, humanity, I am going to be what you need me to be. And for whatever reason, it felt so real and so genuine. And then I prayed and said, just remove everything. Like I'll do the work, but remove everything that doesn't belong in my life. Bring me everything that does. And within a week, I had, quit a job and left a relationship, and everything just flowed after that. So my decisions, that were there and kind of messing me up, that was that defining moment where it was just I feel like it was the genuity of my intention of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to create. And the universe was like, all right, we got your back. Let's do this.
Wow. And so how long were you in your corporate position for?
4 years.
And what attracted you to the corporate world in the first place? Was that your original goal?
All the wrong reasons. When I was in college for one of my degrees, I was working 3 jobs. I was personal training. I worked, believe it or not, at a junkyard, and I was picking parts off of cars all day, which I actually loved that job. And I was running a cheerleading company, and I was making peanuts. But I was trying to make sure that I could pay for school, get all these things done. And I was approached by someone who said, you can work this job and they'll pay for your schooling for free, and you'll make twice as much. And so I was like, I don't know. Like I love what I'm doing right now. And I had a goal, and I was going to become a health coach, and I was getting a degree in health coaching and all this stuff. And my boss at the junkyard, I remember telling him, I was like, I don't think I want to do it. And he was like, if you don't take this opportunity, I'm going to fire you. You don't belong here. And so I had no choice, because he's like, you can't work at a junkyard the rest of your life, Mandy. That's not what you're supposed to do. And so I took this job basically because I was getting pushed, with my parents. I wanted to make everyone happy. Obviously, I wanted to make more money and get school paid for free. And I got a great education, and I learned so much with my time there. I continued to just get promoted. They kept paying me more. I couldn't leave, but it was not fulfilling. It wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. So I just felt that disconnection. When you wake up in the morning, you're like, I'm going to go to the gym because I love going to the gym. It was like, I'm going to go to work because I feel so stuck and I have to. And I wasn't taking responsibility for my life anymore. And that only took about a year into that corporate job to feel that way. And it just, we take the path of least resistance and do things that really don't resonate because we don't think we can do anything different. And I was totally down that path for a point in my life.
I can totally resonate with that. I spent far too long in the corporate world. I spent 8 years in the corporate world, and for the last 3 or 4 years of that, pretty much 50% of that, I knew that it wasn't the place for me. I looked at other career paths and things like this, and it didn't ever feel right. The only true path was to follow my own passion, and the entrepreneurial path was the only way. So I can totally empathize how it feels during that time. I mean, I wanted to talk about some of the biggest challenges. I mean, when you had that realization that it wasn't right for you, what were the next kind of 3 years like? How did you feel during those times?
I kept jumping around to different positions. Anything that I would apply for in the company, I'd usually get. And so I was like, well, if I don't like this anymore, then I'll go over and I'll become a sales trainer. And I became a sales trainer, and then I was miserable. And then I was like, I'll do outside sales. And so I kept trying to fill a void by filling it with more junk. I wasn't replacing it with what I actually needed or what I was trying to create. So I just would bounce around because the company was so large. There were so many different positions, and I'd made a good name for myself. So it was easy to jump around. But eventually I've got a reputation that I won't stay in a department for very long because I get so bored. And so it was a means to an end, especially my last manager who hired me into the outside position for Florida, she was like, "So, how long are you going to stay?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm going to stay." And the regional director, like, "I'm moving across country for this." And literally 5 months later, I was like, "And I'm out. I can't do this anymore."
Yeah, sounds familiar to me as well. So then you said that when you actually had that defining moment and you left your corporate career behind and you started your new path, and you said that happened really quickly. So what happened next? How did you get started?
So I got really lucky. So Oliver Talamayan reached out to me back in October of last year, and he is an incredible business coach. And we connected immediately. And it's literally as soon as he had sent a few messages to me. Normally, I don't respond to most messages, and for some reason, I didn't know who he was. He had friend requested me and then sent a message and said, "Your message is very powerful, but I can't figure out what you're selling." And I was like, and I was still in my corporate job. I'm like, I'm not selling anything. I'm just, spreading the love. And he was like, "So you're just going to hold back your gifts?" And it was like, I didn't feel that way before. And I realized that I couldn't do both, that I couldn't, give love to the world and also be in disalignment with my passion work and so forth. And so he was one of those people that popped up right after I had made that very genuine proclamation to the universe. And I have to owe so much of my success to him because he pushed me so hard in all the right directions. And then I ended up falling in love with him. Go figure.
Amazing.
But he was my cheerleader. He would not let me settle. And he constantly pushed me out of my comfort zone and forced me to do things that I would have never, ever done alone. And he made me feel like I could ask for help. And my entire personal development came, following in suit just because of that. And so after, I had him on board, I started meeting just incredible people by total happenstance, people from other countries and incredible business coaches all around the world, and just making friends with them. I have to be honest and say that I have never paid for a business coach.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't know why that was. Maybe because I didn't, at a point think that I was worthy of spending that type of money on my success or on what I wanted to create. But those people still came to me, and such genuine connections and friendships were made that I realized that I was neck and neck with people that I always belonged with, and that was really what it felt like. It was just that I was meeting people who are me. They were a perfect reflection of my higher self.
Wow. And I think the transformation shows how important it is to align yourself with people who are on the same path and people who are perhaps a little bit further ahead that can help guide and mentor you. I would say for the listeners, I wouldn't always expect your mentors to become your lovers, but that's a unique story that is really magical. So talk to me about your kind of personal development journey then. What are some of the things that you worked on personally to develop yourself?
There was a few things that really kind of hit home for me, and as I started to put a lot of energy into them, it massively shifted. And that was being conscious about where I was at every day. And so it's something that I practice now often, or I'll find myself really deviating from my own energy, is that I'm conscious of how I feel, of what's going on inside me, because my belief and a lot of my teachings is that the energy that you create, because I've studied frequency for so long, that literally every thought, of course, emits a frequency out, but that the universe will respond and create a reality based on the amount of energy, or basically the energy that you power into the matter that creates something denser. So your physical reality. And as I started to really understand that, I realized that my thoughts are one of the most important ways to maintain my peace, because I was never really after financial success or significance or any of those things, but I really, really wanted to feel okay with myself, and I wanted to feel at peace and happy. And the best way for me to be happy and at peace, which brought along all of the other things that other people might desire, that I thought that I wanted as well, but wasn't the core, was being aware of what I'm creating, what am I projecting, how am I feeling, why am I feeling that way? And as I did that, I started realizing there were so many things that I had to work through from like my childhood, and just my paradigm of what I believe that life is, or how it's supposed to look, or what's supposed to happen. And all of that wasn't serving me. I was living through my mom, and I was living through my father, and childhood experiences and the trauma that I had experienced and so forth. And it was shaping my reality in every way that I didn't want it to. And so now I make sure that I know where I'm at every day, and that if I don't like it, that I fix it immediately so that it doesn't turn into something way bigger than I can even get my hands on.
Wow. There's a couple of things I really want to pick up on there. So whilst it's fresh, when you have that moment of realization that perhaps you're out of alignment or you're not feeling how you want to feel, how do you then, well, firstly, how when you have that awareness, how do you then make the shift?
You've got to stop. That's the first thing. We're taught, especially in Western culture, but this is really an entrepreneurial world, period, is that when you're feeling something that you just power through it. And there are perhaps times where that's appropriate, but most often the way that's worked fantastically for me as well as my clients is to just stop for a second, sit in it, understand it. And then I do a visualization. I'm really big on visuals because they've massively helped me shift my energy, is to pull myself almost out of my body and bird's eye view the situation that I'm in, and then either give myself advice or understand that if there's an emotion I'm experiencing, like if I'm experiencing a massive amount of anger and it's creating cortisol in my body and I can't think straight, then I want to remove myself from my body so that I can get my head right again, to know if I just need to take a few deep breaths, if I need to take a walk, if I need to journal, if I need to exercise. Usually it's pent-up energy that has nowhere to go. And whether that's anger or confusion or you're not sure what to do next, that in my mind, that's stored energy in the body. And the best way to kind of create alignment again is to release the energy. And that can be through a multitude of things. Sometimes I just need to sit and journal, or sometimes I need to beat myself up at the gym to get it all out, so that I can feel like me again and have the clear head to know, okay, so what's the next step? Given whatever situation it is, what's the next best thing that I can do? But the first thing is just stopping and sitting in it, and then removing yourself and realizing that it's just a moment in time and that emotions aren't you. It's just a part of the human experience, and it's actually a blessing. And gratitude is an incredible way to move through anything in life that is something that you don't technically want. But I do believe that the soul chooses it before you even get here. So choose to learn the lesson and be aware that the human experience is so beautiful. It's so incredible. If I can feel anger, amazing. That's the rainbow of Mandy. That's another part of me. And I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to be grateful for it, because when my brain is thinking gratitude, it can't also think anger or frustration or confusion and so forth. It can only focus on raising my personal energy up.
So when you have that moment where you stop and you kind of remove yourself from the situation, do you find, or have you found, that you always intuitively know how to take yourself out of the perhaps disempowering emotion, or is that something you've had to develop?
Something I definitely had to develop, because, and that kind of goes back to what my personal childhood programming was, is that I don't think for myself, that I live for other people. And as you do that, kind of like if you don't express your emotions immediately, it turns into something else. And so you create this massive mental fog. And the longer that you don't listen to your intuition, which children are not taught to listen to their intuition, and as you grow older, unless you're consciously aware of it, or you have fantastic parents, bless them, if they can or cannot, guide you in that, but you lose that ability to listen to that gut feeling, to the intuition that's speaking loudly. But something that I've done to start wiping that away is, living consciously. And then I express my emotion, or I say, okay, I'm feeling angry right now. Why am I feeling angry? Because someone did this to me. Okay. And when else has that happened in my life? Oh, I remember. That reminds me, when I sit and I'm quiet for a moment and I listen to myself, that reminds me of what happened when I was 17 and my mom, yelled at me or something like that. And then I realized, okay, so I'm not coming into this experience fresh, and that's not fair, because now I'm just being reactive because I've had an experience. It's just like when someone says like a word or a phrase, and you automatically have a response to it.
Yeah.
Because it's preconditioned.
Yeah.
But that's not that's not being fair to your experience in the now. You're living in the past, no matter how real it seems. It's just re-triggering old emotions, and then you keep this reel going through your mind of what life is going to look like, and then you're not able to listen to your intuition and say, this is what's happening now. Instead, you're like, well, this is what's going to happen based on previous study.
I mean, one of the interesting things about this podcast is I've had lots of really, really interesting conversations with many, many different entrepreneurs and leaders and inspiring people. And when we delve into some of the belief systems that they hold, it's really quite fascinating to find out how some of the belief systems they've either had to not fight, that's probably not the right word, but to shift to enable them to achieve what they've done, whilst others have had belief systems ingrained from youth where it's really empowered them. So how does someone identify perhaps some of those limiting beliefs or belief systems that are restricting them from embracing their true gift?
I keep it as simple as looking at love and fear. Every decision, every thought process comes from love or fear. So for myself, when I was working the corporate job, I thought that I was being super responsible. I was investing in things. I still was making great money. I had my first home at a very young age, all this stuff, right? But I wasn't feeling at peace. And that was my ultimate desire, was to feel in alignment. And for whatever reason, I'm like, I'm doing everything. I take care of myself. I've got the body. At the time I thought that I had this great guy that I was dating, but none of it felt really right. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it didn't feel completely true. And so when I started looking at, so owning the house, was that something that I wanted to do? And I realized, no, it was that I wanted the significant feeling of being so young and owning a home. Okay, well, why am I working this corporate job? Because I want to make my mom proud. And you look at all these different things and where they're actually coming from. Where are your actions coming from? Are they coming from within you? Are they coming from love? Or are they coming from fear? I worked the corporate job and was afraid to leave out of fear. I didn't want to risk either not being able to pay my bills or, and especially in the entrepreneurial world, rejection. And even though I'd been in sales and everything, it's a whole nother ballgame in the entrepreneurial world. And I had just slightly understood that, and it scared me. And so I look at, so where are my decisions coming from? Are they love? Are they fear? And are they mine? And if not, why am I making decisions for others? And how is it serving me? Do I feel good about it? Do I feel at peace? And even if someone doesn't have an intuitive muscle, they can say, I'm happy or I'm not happy about XY situation. So they can still look at what they're doing in their life, piece by piece, and see if it's actually satisfying them or not. And if it's not, then boom, then you're out of alignment. And that's not your truth. And you can weed that out slowly by realizing that it was never yours in the first place.
Wow, that's powerful. That's really powerful. And the other thing I wanted to touch on is you talked about kind of the rainbow of Mandy and living consciously. How does someone become aware of how they want to live and how they want to experience life? There's certain emotions that have kind of naturally have negative connotations like anger and things like that. But I guess they all serve a purpose. How does someone consciously decide how they want to live from?
I think a lot of that, and it kind of goes back to what I said previously, is feeling that alignment or feeling that peace. So there are individuals that I've met and that I've coached who the most important thing for them, like that would truly bring them joy, and if you hook them up to an energy machine, it would be like happiness, is that they want to own BMW i8. That's it for them. And then you go to another person and they're completely different, and what would truly set them on fire is knowing that they have served the planet the way that they wanted to, or that they made whatever it is. And as long as it creates peace in them and not a disconnect and pain, then it's a healthy relationship, and that helps them in understanding who and what they truly are. But being able to make decisions out of love instead of fear is huge in being able to start understanding the intuitive muscle, which also helps someone live consciously and choose who they want to be and how they want to show up in the world. And it allows for them to find authenticity in doing so by constantly being present in what it is that they do want to create, what they don't want to create, what makes them happy or at peace, whatever emotion that they're really trying to strive for or not. And is that working? Someone might think that they want significance and they become incredibly significant and they're still not happy and at peace. And my coaching, I'm not a business coach. I've done some sales coaching and so forth, but I'm all about people finding peace within themselves. So all of my teachings typically are revolving around how to make someone feel like I'm okay with who I am and I accept myself and I love myself. And by doing so, first internally, my entire external world gets to change as well.
Amazing. I really want to delve into some of your teachings in a short while, but one of the first things I want to touch on is I had the pleasure of watching one of your new videos before we got on the call, as you know, and we'll put the link in the show notes so other people can see what we're referencing. But in that, you spoke about what you're doing now is not something you learn to do, but it's something you're born to do. How did you find that moment of clarity when you really truly know what your calling was, your purpose? How did you find that?
I think it was not so much finding it, but like I had buried it and I just had to like scoop back up. As a child, when I looked at who I was and my happiest moments as a child and what I was before programming came in, before the world told me how to be, how I had to look and all of these things, that's who I was. And I was all about servantship and helping people love themselves, basically, for who knows what reason. But I'd completely forgot about that because I didn't love myself for years into my adolescence and basically into my very early 20s, where I was constantly struggling with, I love myself, I don't, I'm not worthy, I am, and just, I call it darkness, where I was just confused. And when I reached a certain point in my life where the soul just kind of screams at you and is like, dude, what are you doing? Like, wake up, wake up, wake up. And some people, absolutely, they keep it dormant forever. It's safer in their minds to not allow for that to come back out because there's a reason they shut it off. And there's probably a painful reason behind it. So unless they know to uncover that, then they're not going to get there. But when I had that defining moment, and really I had a few that had to wake me up because I'd slip back and then, come back through. It was just remembering everything that lights my soul up. And how can I turn that into something for the world? And fortunately for me, it was a lot of servantship, and I love connecting with people, and I love helping because I help myself in the process. I'm selfish in a way, that I get something from this too. When I interact with individuals and I can help them shift their lives. But knowing the impact of what I can create in someone's life, and finally being like, okay, I'm going to do it. It was so life-changing for me.
Amazing. I think, and the thing that you said there about being selfish, I don't believe it is selfish. I think when you give, that's when you get, and I can totally relate to that. And I also think, in terms of what you said there about people pushing down their true calling or their true purpose, there's probably a negative reason for the reason they do that. I often believe that's down to self-worth or lack of self-love. And you talked about not loving yourself. When did you give yourself the permission to then love yourself, and how did that unfold?
I would say, because I've dipped in and out of it, and just speaking in terms of how I know that I am consciously aware of it to where it will never change again, was last year. Again, when I set that intention where I was like, I'm worthy of all of this and I'm going to help the world and all of these things. And then I looked at, what does the world need help on and how can I help? And I'm like, the world is walking around hating themselves. And they're so busy putting so much energy towards trying to fix themselves when they don't need to fix anything. They just need to remove all the shit that isn't them. And it broke my heart because I was one of those people. I walked around believing that I had to do certain things to receive love, or that love wasn't safe. And all of these different, paradigms I'd created in my life that were just really ruining my life and sabotaging me. And I looked at, okay, how many other people are doing this? And it was literally just about everyone. Almost everyone has baggage, and that's a beautiful thing. It's why we're here, and that's why we have each other. It's because we can help each other remove the crap that doesn't belong and find self-acceptance and find self-love and realize that we are particles of God and we are just as perfect. And all that really matters is realizing our perfection and then just being cool with it, whatever we find, It's really that simple. Everyone tries to make it so difficult, and it just drives me nuts because it's not that, even if I can truly say that even if I lost everything that I've built on my entrepreneurial journey because I was supposed to do something new or go live in the jungle or whatever, I would be cool with that because I know that I can validate myself, and I know that I love myself so much. And I had to create the space to allow for all of the things that I thought I was or that I wasn't, and some things that I am that I didn't like as well, and embrace all of them, find gratitude in them, and realize that they're all of my strengths. And you can feel, like when you're around someone, you can feel like when they're real. You can be like, that's an authentic person, or like they just know who they are. And it doesn't matter what they actually are. They could be straight kookaloo, but you just dig them for some reason. And it's because their energy is like truth, because you feel them. And that's what I love to create, because as soon as I started doing that, that was probably why all the things happened in my life and all the incredible people started showing up, was because I was like, I'm here. That's it. Like me or not. But I'm going to do me, and I'm going to do it with respect, to humanity. But I love myself, and I don't need permission anymore.
Amazing. It sounds like you just got to a point where enough is enough. You made a decision. That's it.
Totally.
I'm burning boats. It's me loving me all the highway.
Exactly, man. I was pulling my hair out for a while there.
Did you have to, when you had made that decision, was there any period where you had to kind of reinforce it, or was it just that was it? You'd cut off from the previous reality, and now that was who you were, or did you have to then go through some steps to try and really condition that feeling?
It definitely started with a choice. I had to choose and be like, it doesn't matter. I know that this might be difficult, because it took how long for me to create all these false beliefs. It might take some time to rewire them, but I was committed. And I made the choice that it didn't matter if it got hard or if it was uncomfortable, that I was going to choose it, and I was going to fall into it as openly as I possibly could, because I just didn't want to waste my life. And I didn't want anyone else to waste their life. And I knew that I had to give myself permission in order for some people to have permission themselves. But I did have to create steps, because sometimes programming would come in, or I would get massively tested, and I'd be like, okay, like, why is this happening? What's the lesson? And I had to stop and almost logically pick it apart, and then allow for myself to feel it and, remove it, really.
Wow. There's one final thing I want to ask you before I move on to the next kind of topic. Living consciously, and you talked about right at the beginning about how people are going so fast. It's the hustle, it's the grind, and that's almost become the way of the world. And there's people out there who are big advocates of the hustle and the grind, and non-stop working 24 hours a day. In that fast-paced, I'm sure you come across plenty of people who are like that. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. That's
right,
if that's their happy place and that's who they authentically want to be, that's perfect.
Absolutely.
It's just when you are influenced by people and you feel that's the way you have to be, and it's not you, that's not when it's good. But if people whatever the case may be, we do live in this fast-paced environment. How does someone then take that, slow down to be able to be conscious? Because if you're moving at 1,000 miles an hour, I've had a conversation today with someone, and it's they did something for about 3 years, and they suddenly had a moment of realization. It was they were in the wrong place, they were doing the wrong business, and they'd been successful, but they were in like this warp because they got so wrapped up in what they were doing. They hadn't acted consciously. So how does someone, when we've got this huge pace of the world, how do you slow it down so that you can have that conscious awareness?
I think it's all about the balance, and every balance is different. It can be 50-50, it could be 70-30, 60-40, whatever it looks like for the individual. And that's a part of starting to understand that intuition that they have, is that they can find answers and figure out what's supposed to work for them. There was a time in my life where I was working 75 hours a week and going to school full time. I have no idea, looking back, how I managed that. Mm-hmm. And maybe because I was young or whatever it was, but that was a time in my life where I thought I had to. It was how I felt important. It was how I kept my alignment, or what I believed was my alignment, so that I didn't, fall off and become a nothing in my mind. And then that stopped working. I couldn't just grind it out anymore. And that was when I was like, there's got to be another way, or I'm going to end up broke on the street, because I don't care anymore. Like, I have no more energy to give towards that way of living my life. And what I perceived it as was that my very masculine side of me, which is actually incredibly masculine. I come off much more feminine now, but I grew up with a mom who supported the entire family. Dad stayed home. So I believed women work, and we work hard. And so my masculine was just dying. It was like, this is not how it's supposed to be. I believe that the world is energetically shifting, and that's why a lot of people are starting to give themselves permission to not have to grind so much if it's not right for them. But I just couldn't do it anymore. It served me very well, and it's why I am where I am today, I'm sure, in many ways. But then it also no longer served me. And as we continue to grow and evolve, I think that's normal. And then I moved into this, I need to start giving myself time. Instead of saying, okay, there's 13 hours in the day, how can I jam pack it? I'd be like, I'm going to take an hour and I'm going to journal, or I'm going to take 15 minutes and I'm just going to sit and have a cup of tea. And I'm going to hate having that cup of tea for 15 minutes because it's so not like me. But I'm just going to see what happens. And after, gosh, maybe doing that for a week or two, I was like, I really enjoy this. And I'm actually getting more information and more incredible thoughts. And I can still be busy, but why not fill it with traveling or helping a family in need, or just, I started looking, okay, what are the other things I want to create and how can I create them? I can't create them if I'm constantly grinding and trying to reach this goal. I don't want to look back on my life and be like, wait, where did it go? And so it's not even to say that I probably work much less hours now, but my work looks different. I'm doing things that I'm passionate about. And in doing so, especially when you're doing your own passion work, whatever that is, for some people that's real estate, for some people that's coaching, whatever it is, you create space so that you can get even more creative with it and you can fall even further into it. So it might seem like you're not grinding anymore, but it's like grinding 2.0.
I think the difference is there's two things. One is I think when you're fully in tune with your passion, you're working on your purpose, it's like a flowing river, a free flowing river when you're working. Whereas when you're out of alignment with who you are and what you want to do, it's more like a jagged riverbank and you're grinding against the rocks and you're still making progress because the river goes in the direction it needs to go, but you're just constantly hitting the rocks and that's where it feels painful. And I think the other thing was, from what you were saying, when you made the analogy of love and fear, I think a lot of people have the fear to give themselves that space to actually feel and explore what's going on. I certainly experienced that when I was in my corporate world. It was almost like fear of the unknown. If you give yourself that time to think what's going to happen.
I love that you say that because that immediately reminded me of that time in my life where I was really, really grinding it out and I was getting sick and I was really stressed out, but I wanted to work hard enough to where I didn't have to think. And again, this is just my experience and I honor where everyone is at and how they go about things. But in that moment in time, I was running from something and it was mainly my thoughts because my mind does go 10,000 miles a second. And so I was not safe in my mind because it would run in so many different directions that I would rather just keep my physical body busy enough to where the mind wasn't having to do too much work outside of, school work or my studies. I was just kind of grinding out in that sense.
That's really interesting. Yeah, so aligned to that point. So the next question I have for you, what's been your kind of proudest moment since you found your path and you stepped into your passion work? What have been some of the proudest moments you've had?
I love this question. The first one that comes up for me was my first program that I was ever going to sell. It was a 30-day program. And I had no idea, how sales work or anything. And so I pitched it and no one was buying. And I was like, that's kind of a bummer, but I was cool with it. I was like, I didn't really expect it, but I just wanted to see and throw it out there. And I remember my phone beeping the day before the program was going to start, and the first sale came in. And then, sales poured in after. The first sale came in, and I was like, and I looked at Oliver, and I'm like, look at my phone. And he's like, what? And I'm like, do you see that? Do you see there's a sale? Someone sent me money. And he's like, of course they did. You're worth it. And I'm like, but do you understand? And I just and it was like a $500 sale, but I was like ecstatic. I was like, oh my gosh, like I knew I was worthy, but thank you for the validation. Like, this is fantastic. And I was just so stoked. And it was honestly my proudest moment where I was like, you know what, I can do this and I'm just going to run with it.
Amazing. That's such a cool story. It's interesting timing as well. I've set up my first kind of brand new online kind of like funnel thing, webinar funnel. I have run them before, but this is the most powerful launch. I'm underselling myself. I have done funnels before, but this is the most powerful launch sequence I've ever put together. And talking about living from energy, I put so much love into this funnel. Like it itself is bursting at the seams with my love. But it's going live over the next couple of days, so I'm kind of I'm really looking forward to those moments where you're like, it worked. And
yes, it was incredible, man.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. And what's coming up next week? What's the vision for your business? What are you really focused on?
Oh my gosh, Dan, I have been thinking about that so much lately because I'm at this, I feel like this should be a pivotal moment, like years into the entrepreneurial journey, but I tend to, want to create something new every 5 seconds. And so I've been looking at, given I launched in the past 6 months, I launched so many different things to see what I liked, to see what people bought, to see what served people at the highest good. And what I've noticed is my VIP days. So I do these one-on-one VIP days where a client will fly in and work with me 1 or 2 days, and they leave. It's been amazing. They're night and day different. Wow. And then also the workshops. And so I do these workshops. I've been having a lot of individuals reach out to me outside of my current demographic. Like couples have been reaching out to me, a lot of females, and I typically work with men who are going through massive changes. And I'm just so passionate about working with that demographic, and it's worked so well. But I do, the workshops, and I'm like, how can I make the workshops even more powerful? And what can we do now and next? And should I start traveling to different locations? Because I know that it's difficult for everyone to always travel across country or out of country. And so right now my focus is there were two in all actuality. My coaching business, of course, and getting the workshops a little bit more structured and every month, because I might have the people to fill it, but I don't have the time to actually plan them. And then I'm like, oh wait, okay, we got to figure this out and make sure that it's scheduled correctly. Yeah. And then I'm also looking at an investment in an incredible company, and I can't say too much yet, but it's revolved around the energy work that I've studied for years, and healing on a more medical level. So I'm balancing the two, but my coaching is kind of the forefront right now.
Amazing. And so you started out predominantly working with guys, is that right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And what were the kind of key pain points that people would come to have kind of work on?
Well, so this is what I've realized, and this is probably why I'm so hot on childhood programming as well. When I was 12 years old, a very predominant male figure in my life called me because he was killing himself. And not to make everything all depressing right now, but what I realized in that moment, because he didn't, and I was able to, for some reason, at 12 years old, talk this old man off the ledge, if you will. And I realized he couldn't start over. He didn't believe that he could create a new life. He believed that he had got himself into such a mess in life, and he was just so broken that it wasn't even worth living. And I don't want that for anyone. And I realize that there's a lot of people who either literally are willing to end their life, or they spiritually and emotionally end their life and just zombie out because it's safer for them. And women are much more open, in some terms at least, in regards to their emotions and so forth. But men are, there's a lot of men who still are giving themselves permission to be as beautifully balanced in their masculine and their feminine as they can be. And when I started looking at the people that I was attracting based on my very authentic, message of whatever it was that I was sending out, so I was kind of naturally vibrating with these individuals. And when I looked at why could that be, that was when I kind of trailed it back to my childhood. But these are men who don't know that they can start over, or they sure as heck don't know how. They have a hard time asking for help. And they're in a lot of pain. And it's a lot of times I've noticed that it's revolved around mistakes that they think they've made, forgiveness. Maybe they ruined their marriage. Their fiance left them. Whatever it is, they can't forgive themselves, and they also don't believe that anything's ever going to get better. And so they just sit in this sad experience in life unnecessarily. And shifting them has been so incredibly rewarding, and for some reason, I really have a knack for it.
And that's really powerful, and I think it's really great to reference kind of the masculine and feminine energies as well, because the masculine man historically has not been able to tune into those emotions, or at least not share them openly with another masculine male. This is very historic kind of. Again, looking at belief systems being created by past paradigms, I think that's something that's been really well enforced into the man. But I believe the modern man, the modern masculine man, the true fearless masculine man, is able to tap into every spectrum of their emotion and then share that with other people. But I think the real challenge is, I think that's beautiful what you're doing, is because I think the classic masculine man struggles to share that openly his challenges or frustrations or emotions with another man. Whereas when you have this other energy coming to you, particularly like from the love force, the force of love which you project, I think that really enables people to create that space where they can open up. And that's just my perception from a short conversation with you about how things operate. Whereas you're right, when you look at the feminine woman, you go to a cafe full of feminine women together, they're speaking, they're open, they're sharing. It's a sharing environment, whereas the masculine man, and I'm very conscious about saying masculine, feminine, because I believe that obviously there are polarities that are present in both. But I think that's a different experience. I think what you've been able to create is something quite magical for people to actually have that space to transform. Talk to me about some of the work that you do on your workshops. How do you help your clients?
So I really go off of intuition. My very first workshop, I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, I got to plan everything out. I got to make sure I have enough lessons and all this stuff. And bless Oliver, he's like, I don't think it's going to go that way. And I'm like, yeah, it is. I'm like, I'm going to follow the, you know what I mean, and all this stuff. And he's like, okay, whatever you say, because he knows me. And the first day starts, and I get 2 structured lessons in, and then I'm like, I feel these men. I can feel their energy. I can feel what they need, what they don't need. And I'm like, all right, dang it, he's right. So I might have, concepts, because there are, some of the principles like the living consciously and so forth that I talked about earlier. Those are kind of the core foundation of beginning to break through and understand oneself. And so we always walk through the basics of how to start hearing and flexing your intuitive muscle, how to understand energy in a way that makes sense to people, and how to create different emotions based on knowing what they're currently experiencing and what they'd like to experience and so forth. And I usually have speakers come in as well. So we actually had Alon Torres, who's a power couples coach. I had him fly in, and he's just a fantastic friend, very, very conscious male, incredibly balanced. And I was worried, actually, because some of the men are threatened by masculine energy, but Oliver's very balanced and Alon was very balanced, and it created this incredible experience for them. And Alon walked them through creating new experiences for themselves in regards to their future relationships and releasing the brokenness that they felt that they had, and the forgiveness around their relationships that have failed in the past and so forth, and believing that they're worthy. And so we walk through visualizations. We do multiple meditations so that I can kind of get them out of their head and in the room with me. And then it's really based on, what do they need? And sometimes I'll pull someone out and speak to them, personally, something that I feel like they need to hear in that moment. And for some reason, I have that ability. I've listened to my intuition long enough that I can definitely be empathetic and feel individuals. And usually when I do that, they're like, that was exactly what I needed to hear, or that was exactly what just removed the block that I had in my head, and I couldn't say it out loud, or whatever it is. And we create this community. The men who would feel completely unsafe opening up, releasing, crying, all of these experiences that they get to have. It's completely beautiful. They give themselves full permission because of the energy that we create. That I facilitate. I just fill the room up with love and acceptance. And they just crack open into all that they are. And it's so amazing and it's so beautiful. And these men are incredible. They are incredible human beings who are going to do so much for the world. And I always make sure that they leave knowing all of their incredibleness. Wow. So what are some of the kind of transformations that people would experience over the course of your workshop? I had this one individual who immediately comes to mind. And he's a software programmer, owns a couple companies. And when he came, he was you could see it in his face that he just wasn't okay with anything about himself, his life. I mean, to the point where he couldn't communicate. He literally was sitting in the workshop, and we were introducing ourselves, and he probably talked for about 20 minutes because he didn't know how to express himself, let alone just talk about who he is. And over the course of, it actually took about a day and a half, but at the very end as well, but about a day and a half in, he fully released. And he cried multiple times before that, but he finally we got the leverage point. I found the leverage point in him, what needed to really shift, what happened to him that made him believe that he had to act the way that he was acting and why he didn't deserve certain things. And we removed that story, replaced it, and night and day, like he had more color in his face and he was standing upright, and his voice, he was communicating correctly. And it was just huge. And everyone was just, just loving on him and showing him that he's allowed to be himself. And the group, learns how to love each other as well as themselves. So it just facilitates the growth that much more. But man, this guy, night and day, it was so incredible.
Amazing. That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
From your work then with guys, what do you feel are some of the primary things that holds a man back from experiencing his greatness?
A lot of it comes down to programming from their mom and their dad, which is, that it's really with anyone. But it was, at least in the men that I work with, it's heavy and they don't even realize it, to the point where they've created their entire lives, their businesses, some of their old marriages around either trying to satisfy and make their parents proud of them, or they don't even realize it, but they've just assumed who their parents are. And it's tricky sometimes because it doesn't look exactly like them, so they think that it's theirs. And so one of the huge things is pulling apart what's them and what's not them. And a huge struggle I've seen as well is just being able to open up, to feel safe, to communicate, because at some point in most people's lives, expression was not safe, or you lost love when you expressed yourself, or you got in trouble as a child when you were crying too hard, or whatever it is. Every person's different, but everyone has those experiences that they just boom, make a key decision and life changes and they live their life around that paradigm. And a lot of men live in so many old belief systems that either aren't theirs or from their old experiences. And it sabotages their ability to communicate or to, of course, love themselves. It leads to them doing things that they wouldn't normally do. I had multiple clients who are so ashamed that they cheated on their exes. And when we broke it down, they were trying to receive love. And obviously it wasn't in the best way that they could do that. But when they realize they're not a monster and they understand their motivations and how to change them and remove that part of themselves that was never them in the first place, they can find forgiveness and create that acceptance again in themselves, thus, fostering love as well. It's just, they've got to be willing to be open to communicate it. And that's probably one of the biggest things, is being able to be open and then being able to be willing to work through that. And that's something that we massively hone in on the workshops as well as the VIP days.
Wow. It's almost giving people the opportunity to kind of rewrite their stories.
Absolutely, 100%.
So the final topic I'd like to touch on before we go into the final round, this is a personal topic that I'm interested to explore. We talked about going 1,000 miles per hour. I've been in 1,000 miles per hour zone. I've been hitting the rocks on the river the last few weeks as I've been building this, this big project that I've been working on. And, as a result of doing this, and my body, I'm feeling tension in my body, like stress in my mind. It's boom, 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 go, force, force, force. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you come across plenty of people who are experiencing stress as a result of their lifestyles. How does someone tackle the issue of stress? How do they minimize or eliminate stress?
I start with mornings. If you can start with your morning ritual, you can massively impact the amount of stress that you allow into your life, because it's not that something causes stress, it's your relationship with it that causes stress. And when you start your mornings off, and this is something that we work heavily on, especially in the beginning, if people can't get out of their head, I believe in grounding techniques where as soon as you wake up in the morning, I like to say a few gratitudes if I can. Sometimes I need a journal right away. I like to take a shower because I think that a lot of energy when you're sleeping, that's when you are you have no walls up. So there's a lot of things that can pass through you, thoughts, experiences, and so forth. You want to make sure that you kind of cleanse them off. And so I take either a hot or cold shower, depending on how brave I'm feeling that day, so that I can, release. It feels, and again, it's just a mental thing, but it feels like I'm removing anything that isn't me, and I get to start totally fresh, because stress, especially chronic stress, is happening day over day over day, and it's just building up. And so starting the day off with kind of removing some of that. When you think, oh, you wake up and you're fresh. No, not at all. You've had uncontrolled thoughts running through your brain and your dreams for the past 8 hours. Like, you are certainly not fresh. And so whether that's journaling, a shower, hot or cold, and then I do a grounding technique, and it's just where I breathe and I imagine what my day is going to look like. I'm huge on like visualizing. I visualize 3 times a day. I visualize in the morning what I want my day to look like, visualize in the middle of the day of what I want my life to look like, and then I visualize at night what I want the next day to look like, and just in my entire life. And I just sit in that for a moment, and I create the emotions so that the emotions are familiar. They run through my body, and I've found that almost acts as a buffer to stress and to the tension in your body and so forth, is just for a moment creating something new. And usually the morning as well as before bed are the most important times, so that you can cleanse yourself, because your sleep can be as the restorative, peaceful, remove everything that you need, or it can just kind of create this vicious cycle of not processing whatever's actually happening to you.
Amazing. Is there, just before we wrap up with the final round, is there any other habits or rituals that you follow every day to keep you in tune with your higher self and your purpose?
Yes, I journal every day, even if I don't think that I have something to say. I sometimes will just say, hi, today's a great day, or I'm feeling this way, or whatever it is, but I will make sure that my pen hits the paper at least once a day. That's something I've done for years, and it helps me get all my thoughts out. So I can just throw them up and get them out of my body. And then I also make sure that I go outside at least twice every day, because there's days, especially as entrepreneurs, or if you're online, you're constantly on the computer and so forth. And if it's too hot outside to sit outside and work, on your computer, because I live in Arizona right now, I can't sit outside all the time. It just gets too hot in midday. But I make sure that I get outside, not just walking to my car, but I sit outside, or I'll go outside barefoot or something and just appreciate for a moment. And that always brings me back. Outside of that, then the grounding and my shower in the morning, and then my manifestations throughout the day. And I do make sure that I'm not perfect, but almost every day I take 15 minutes to an hour to 2, however long it kind of goes, and it's my brainstorming time. And I look at, what do I want to create next? What am I creating right now? Am I okay with what I'm creating right now? And I just kind of do an internal temperature check so that I can gauge where I'm at before I'm so far off that I'm like, whoa, how did I get here? I make sure that I'm kind of checking in before that happens.
Powerful stuff. So, Mandy, we're going to now enter into the very final round. I've got 3 quick-fire questions for you to finish our session today.
Great.
Are you ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it. I feel like there should be music for the final round.
Yeah, Eye of the Tiger or something. So, number 1 is, we've touched on a number of the lessons, but knowing everything that you know now, and experiencing everything you've ever experienced, if you were to go back and meet your younger self, what would be the number 1 piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
Don't wait. Don't hold back. Be you. Be all of you. You're perfect. You don't need to change anything at all. But follow your heart. Don't listen to anyone else before you listen to yourself. Your heart knows what it needs, and it will always guide you to exactly where you want to go.
Wow, that's a beautiful lesson. The second question is, I don't know if you're a reader, but what is the most impactful book that you've ever read? Oh
my gosh. This is a tough one. Psycho-Cybernetics was a great read. I read that at a very young age because my mom was very into it. And Conversations with God, for whatever reason, I really don't take many of the lessons from it now. I've read it twice. But when I read it the first time, it shifted so many of my belief systems that it kind of made me go, anything's possible.
Amazing. And the final question is, what does being unstoppable mean to you?
Unstoppable to me is being authentic. When you are who you are, there's nothing that you can or can't do. It's just a matter of choice. And following that piece of you that knows what you need, that intuition, knowing how to create that, nobody can get in your way. There's nothing that can stop you. There's nothing that can build a barrier high enough that you're not going to want to or be capable of jumping over when you know who you are.
Amazing. Mandy, well, I believe you are unstoppable, and thank you for unleashing your greatness on the show today.
Thank you so much.
The final thing for us to do is, for the listeners who have been with us today, how do they find out more about your work? How can they connect with you? What's the best way to people to find out about your work?
The best way to find me is on Facebook. I am on Instagram and Twitter and so forth, but I don't do too much on there. All my material, everything, my content, I'm always trying to spread out some love and give just free value. Facebook almost every day. You can find me. I'm just Mandy Morris. It's actually my personal page. And then also my website, and that's myauthenticproject.com.
Amazing. I think perhaps you'd like to, I've seen your posts always have the same tagline at the end. Perhaps you'd like to share that just to wrap up.
Yes. And in case no one has told you today, I love you.
Amazing. Mandy, you've been amazing today. Thank you so much for sharing your love on the show. This has been an incredible episode, and I really honor you for spending your time on the Unstoppable podcast today.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you, Dan.
Unstoppable Tribe, it is my hope that you found this episode as powerful as I did. My question to you is, are you making your decisions from love or from fear? Something to think about. I've taken an absolute stack of notes in my journal from this episode, and I'll be sharing exactly what I'll personally be taking away in the next episode on Monday, episode 50, the big milestone. And I've got an awesome show lined up for you to mark the 50th episode, and cannot wait to share it with you. In the meantime, please do visit the blog and share your own experience of today's show. What insights will you apply in your own life as a result of the distinctions that you've made today? Head over to the show notes at danjgregory.com/49 and join in the conversation. Before we shut it down for today, I have a question for you. Are you a regular listener of the Unstoppable podcast? I would love to connect with you personally. It is my vision to make this podcast the most profound and impactful podcast on the planet. So I would absolutely love your feedback. Even if you're not a regular listener and this is your first listen, please do get in touch, because I would still love to know what other shows you listen to, what you like about them, so that I can piece together the next steps for the Unstoppable podcast. To all my listeners and my guests so far, I appreciate you. I hope that we get to meet in person someday. Thank you so much for tuning in today. That's all we've got time for. Please subscribe and share the Unstoppable podcast. Until next time, go out there, unleash your greatness, build your empire, make your impact, and live your ultimate life. You are unstoppable.